just got in a couple new rear bags. I wanted to fill them up and I thought, well, might as well make a video and show you how I do it. Let's go take a look. And here's what we've got. These are Dima medium bags, and I ordered a couple new ones. One with some low ears that matched my low bag here, same kind of ears. And then I ordered another one that had some tall ears. I'm going to do some testing between the two, so that's why I got a low and a high. I thought it would be interesting to do some stuff in the future where I show the differences and, kind of how each bag can react to a stock and stuff. But I need to get them filled up. Now, one of the differences, so this is the low Dima bag, and you'll notice there's nothing on the bottom here. In the past, if you've seen any of my videos with my other bags, they had a bung hole on the bottom, and I'll show you that here. So there's a bung hole here to fill and empty. I do like this. It's something that I have missed on the smaller bag. And my previous Dima bag actually looked just like this, but it had a handle on it. And I found that I didn't need the handle for traveling or for even just shooting. I just didn't need to carry it by a handle, and it just took up space in my travel bags. So I wanted to get rid of the handle, so that's why I have gone with the handleless version. Now, to get these filled, the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need an Allen, and we're going to want to open up the bung hole on the bottom here. And it's a nice big opening that you'll see here. I mean, I can get my pinky in it easily. I can almost get my index finger in that hole. And there are still the flaps like on normal bags here that you would see here. And those are for filling. And we're going to use those. We're just not going to use them yet. And I'll show you. Now, I want to leave that tucked in for the time being because as I'm filling, I don't want any sand to come out of that flap. So we'll pull that flap out when we need to start really packing this in. But for the immediate future here, we're just going to use the hole on the bottom. Now I'm going to pull these out, and I'm just going to put the screws aside, or the caps here. We're going to go ahead and put those aside. And before we do anything with the bottom, what we need to do is we need to fill the ears. Now, we could fill the ears afterwards, and I have done that in the past on some bags. But given the opportunity, I would always rather try to fill the ears initially when the bag itself is empty. It's a personal preference thing for me, but the reason I like doing it, and you can see I'm just using a small flathead screwdriver to pull the flaps out of here. I just need to get under the crease and just pop these flaps out. The reason I like doing it is after they're full, I need to tuck these in, and it's just easier to tuck them in when this is empty rather than full. Now, in the future, as this stretches, I am going to have to fill the ears again. And yes, that means I'll have to pull the flaps out. But all things being equal, I'd rather fill the ears initially before I fill the actual bag. So I've got this ready to go. I've got the flaps out on both sides. And one of the things that I want to make sure, especially when, I'm going to show you a full one here. On these ears, it's a little bit less of an issue because they're a lot shorter and a little smaller. And it's a little easier to get the same amount of sand in both. You can get a better feel on it. But when you've got big ears like this, you really want to make sure you don't have one that's really full and one that's lighter, and it's going to, end up pushing your stock one way or the other. I try to make sure I get the same amount of sand in each one of them. And it's not that I'm measuring out each side, but I am going to try to at least kind of count out how much sand is going in each side. And I'm just going to work my way back and forth. So first thing I need to do, and this is true whether I'm using Specs Light. This is their 2511. I really like it. It's about 20% lighter than sand, but it measures out like sand. We're going to use this for the ears. And then when it comes to filling the body, we're going to use that 2511 plus some of their lightweight fill. And this is I forget what the number is on this one, 5125. And I have tried a lot of different poly fills from them, but I like this one because for one thing, it's round. It's not sharp, so it's not going to scratch or, eat at the bag on the inside because I'm going to be packing this thing really tight. It's different when you have a loose fill bag for like position shooting, PRS, stuff like that, where it's not compacted as tight as it can get. With this, it's going to be really tight, and I don't want those sharp edges digging in. So I do like the rounded nature of this. It also is a very hard, small kind of BB feel. And that is going to, one, fill a little bit better, but two, it's going to mix with the sand and it's going to occupy some space, but it's not going to dig at the bag on the inside. And so we're going to do that. But for the ears themselves, we're going to be using this 2511. Now, whether you're using regular sand, reptile sand, heavy sand, whatever it is, blasting media, like I've seen all kinds of stuff being used. I've used most of it myself. I like to use some kind of a container or tray, whether you have an old sheet pan you can use, just to, catch as much sand as you can. The other thing I will really recommend is no matter what you're using to fill your bags, and no matter how good you think at not making a mess, I would really recommend that you do this somewhere other than your reloading bench, because this is really fine sand, no matter what kind of sand you're using, it's really fine and it can get into a lot of your tools if you're not careful, whether that's a reloading die, whether that's calipers, whether that's, your bullets. Once it gets on your reloading bench, it's really tough to get 100% off without, completely removing everything, blowing it all off, wiping it down, wet wiping it. I hate getting sand off my reloading bench, so I just don't ever get it near my reloading bench. Normally when I fill, I just use my media table here, or I've got my cleaning table that I can use. Either one of those would be excellent. Worst case, if you don't have an additional table to use, just get on the ground and do it. I promise you won't regret it. But I do put down some kind of a little tray. I would normally use kind of a taller Sterilite, but for videoing purposes, it would get in the way. So I just use the lid off of that Sterilite, and it's just to help collect any sand that might spill. Not so much so I can reuse it unless I really make a mess, but more just to, again, make my cleanup that much easier. I know I'm going to end up with a little bit of dust or residual on the outside, but this just makes it a little bit easier. So let's get started with the bag itself. We're going to start with the blue one here, and we want to fill this up. Now we need to get the sand, whatever it is, into our filling container. I've had this is probably one of the oldest tools I own from when I started reloading and shooting, and this is the 21st Century bag filler. I literally had this thing for probably 10 or 12 years now, and it's just it's held up really well. I still have the original bottle, although if I needed to, I think I can swap out like a water bottle, regular water bottle, if I needed to. But it's just taking a lick and keeps on ticking. I mean, I love the thing. Now, I tend to use 2-gallon bags to hold all of my sand. And the reason is I'm going to fill this inside of here, again, to minimize mess. I have just a cheap funnel from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take the Dixie cup and I'm just going to scoop this in here. And I don't like filling these bottles all the way. I want to have about half of the bottle full. So we'll see here. Mainly because it's just, it gets awkward, a lot of weight to move around. And if I'm trying to make an adjustment inside of a bag with something, I just don't want to have the whole thing full. Also, as I'm turning it sideways or lifting it up, if it's completely full, it's more likely to spill out initially. This way I can have it sideways and not really worry about anything coming out. And as I pull it out of the bag, I don't have to worry about it either. So here's what we're going to do. We have our flap here. We're going to stick this in the hole here. I mean, this is a new bag, so it's a tape hole. And with most bags that you're filling, you'll put it into the flap, and it's not going to really start dispensing sand until you kind of break. There's a internal pocket that you need to get past, and I'm now past that, and so it is starting to fill up in here. And then I just typically am going to bounce it around a little bit as it's filling up here. And as it fills into the bags, we just want to make sure. Now, I did this just to show you, but if you ever question, you can pull it out and you can see if there's any of your sand coming out. But you're going to make a mess. I'm going to clean this all off some of the time. And I'm just mentally counting. Now, while filming, it's obviously a little bit tougher to do. So, but I'm just doing this, and what you're doing is you're pushing sand in, and then when you pull the tube away, it's depositing the sand. Now, when you have more volume or an empty bag inside, sometimes you can just leave the filler and it'll just, kind of all come out. But I'm just used to doing this to help push it into different areas. And it's going to take a minute here. But if you have a timer, if you want to weigh out sand as you're getting started, now I have done it enough. I'm pretty good at getting both sides equal, but it's definitely something you want to make sure you do right. So whatever method you want to try, whether it's timing it or weighing out how much goes in each side, or you can just, put some marks on here and kind of figure out how much you're putting in each side. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. You just don't want to get it really lopsided. As long as it's really close, you're going to be fine. And as the bag stretches, it's going to settle in a little bit as well. Okay. Now I'm going to stop for a second. You can see we're starting to fill in here. This one obviously is still empty. These fill independently, by the way, in case I didn't tell you that. So this flap is going to fill this year. This flap is going to fill this year. We're just going to keep going at it. There's definitely some slop still in the bag, and I would like to get it tight. But at this point, what I want to do is I want to show you, now that I have the filler, and I've still got enough sand in here, I'm going to put it back in. And this is where you got to really kind of start strategically figuring out where you've got some pockets that you need to fill. You're just going to move the bag filler around. I'm not going to lie. If you don't have a bag filler of some kind, I don't even know if there's other companies out there anymore, but if you don't have a bag filler, this is a very difficult proposition. It does take much, much longer to do. But I'm kind of feeling and squeezing, and I'm just working sand in those areas. Now, because this is leather, it's going to stretch, and it takes time. Now, the heavier sand, if you were to fill this with like really heavy sand, no matter what company it is, and you really pack it, because of that weight, it's going to stretch the leather differently than something like this, which is a lighter weight sand. And again, it's one of the reasons I do like using the lighter weight sand, and I just find that it keeps my bags more consistent. I don't end up with a ton of stretch. It's always going to stretch a little bit, but nothing like a heavy sand. Now, as you pull out, you want to make sure that you don't make a big mess. And what I typically do, we'll take an Allen and I'll push whatever sand is in this flap right now. And I need to get it down below so that I can tuck the flap in. So I'm basically trying to empty that flap at this point. So my flap is empty, and I'm going to pinch this off here, and I want to squeeze and see how this feels. Now, I like how this feels. It has just a hint of give in it, and I'm okay with that right now. Let's see here. It's going to give me a chance to really see how this feels. Now, everybody shoots also a little differently with different kinds of ears. I know some people that don't fill their ears, maybe an 80% fill or 90% fill. They definitely leave a little bit of a flap in here. I like mine almost completely packed. I mean, mine's tight, but like I've got a little bit now that I'm moving it around and squeezing it. I'm definitely finding there's you can see there's some buckle back here. So let's go ahead and put a little bit more, and I'm going to aim it. What I'm doing is I'm aiming it down into that cornice. Now that filled that in nicely, and there's a little bit of a pucker up front here. And you can go as crazy as you want with this. And my thing is pretty much empty at this point, so you can see there's nothing else coming out. And that's going to give me a good read on how much to put in the other one as well. All right, yeah, so there's nothing in my flap. Now, the way Dima makes his flaps, he's got a little pocket, and that pocket is designed so that you can push the ear back under. So we're gonna take this, and then typically I'm going to take a big flathead screwdriver. You don't want anything that's going to cut into it, but I'm going to put the screwdriver in here, and then we're going to tuck it into the pocket that is underneath. Let me just make sure I got all the sand out. Yeah. Okay. And we're just going to push that in, and we're just going to work it under a little bit. And then if you need to, you can also use an Allen wrench. I've done that plenty of times as well. And we're just trying to tuck that ear under. And you can see I've got it tucked under nicely. Remember, the reason I told you I like starting with this empty is you can really get that tucked under. And there's almost no flap showing on the side. And that's how I want it, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process there, and then we will start on the bottom. And you can see I've got two relatively, they're as close as I'm going to usually get them, but two really nice symmetrical sets of ears. Spacing is set for my keel, this is 17 millimeters, or as close as you can get to 5/8 with a Dima bag, but it works great. You want to make sure that you get bags that match, by the way, your keel so that they ride really well. There's nothing worse than having ear spacing that's way too wide and your gun isn't sitting nice. I'd rather have a little bit tight than a little too loose. Now you can see here, I've got some sand. Again, this is the reason I like having some kind of a spill tray underneath me. It's just one less amount to have to pick up, but there is a little bit on the bench. So that's all right. I'm expecting it. Now, on the bottom side here, because we have this larger fill hole, it's one of the reasons I can get away using this Specs Lite. Now, my goal for me, and I know this is going to make some people's eyes roll, but I am not a big, heavy rear bag person for two reasons. One, traveling, it just adds to flying weight. And if you have a 20-pound bag, or in some cases, like I used to have a really heavy bag, it was like 23 or 24 pounds. That's half of a 50-pound bag that is going to cost you another $100 to fly with or something. In this case, I like to have about an 8 or 9 pound bag at the most. I believe this plus my other one ended up being right about 7.5. So somewhere right in that 7.5 or 8 is where I want to be. I shoot really well off them. I don't have a problem with it. It's not for everybody. Some people want a heavier bag. That's the beauty of it, though. There's a lot of different substrates you can put in there that are going to help balance out the weight. But because this is a little bit larger and because this was a little bit smaller, I can balance out that weight by putting some of the plastic fill in here and then putting the sand on top of it. Whereas here, I did 100% sand because I didn't have the additional volume. Now, with that larger hole, I'm not going to use the filler. The filler does have its limits. You really want to use it for sand type stuff where it's going to flow really easily. But a larger funnel like this and a cup just to dump it in is all I need. Now, I don't want to put a ton of this in because I do need some weight in there, but my goal is probably to put 4 or 5 scoops in here, and then we're going to put the sand in around it. So this is just going to go in, and it's always a little tricky when you're not putting sand in. I'm going to try to show you here, but you can see it just takes a little bit more. You have to be a little more diligent about how you're filling it. So slower is better just because the hole's a little smaller. So I'm kind of bouncing it in there. And then if it does fill up in my funnel like it did here, I'll show you. If it does fill up like that, again, I'm going to just let this hang a little bit. I'm just going to lift the funnel up and I'm just going to kind of work it. And that's going to drop the balls into the hole like that. I'm going to do one more and then we're going to call it good. The rest is going to be sand. And again, the sand is going to pack itself around. Eventually, you can kind of feel the sand is going to separate from the balls. So even though it feels like it's perfectly mixed when you're done here, it is eventually going to settle over time. I have found that. I have actually taken apart some of these rests in the past and found that that the sand had separated considerably. So I've got my lightweight fill in there first. Now we're going to go ahead and bring back over the 2511. And I'm going to go ahead and fill this up. Now in this particular case, I am going to put more. I'm going to fill this bottle up as close as I can to the top, simply because this is going to take a lot more sand. We're going to go ahead and start filling this. Now I'm not going to go too crazy right now. I just need to, basically start emptying this thing in here. Once it gets mostly full, we're going to screw the bun plug in, and then we're going to go ahead and open up the flap and start packing in the rest of it. But if I lift up here, you can see this stuff's just flying out like water right now. I skipped ahead a little bit. Obviously, I put in the plug here, and what that did is that gave us the ability to really kind of knock all the sand down and create a void up top. I then use the bag filler to fill in any additional space. And now I am just finishing it off and want to get my corners filled in. Just any additional little, like there's a little bit of gap right here, just a hair. And again, I don't want to get it so tight that it's busting at the seams, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I give it a good fill. Something to consider, the heavier the bag, and I know I've said this before, but the heavier the bag you make, the more the leather's going to stretch. That's one of the reasons, again, I use the plastic fill to help offset some of it. I do want to make sure that everything is nice and tight, but it's going to stretch no matter what I do. No matter how tight you fill it, you are going to get stretch. And then typically with a new bag with good leather on most of your normal, brands of bags, whether it's Dima or Seb or Protector or Edgewood, they're all going to stretch, especially in the first couple months if they are completely full. So don't be surprised if you fill it and then you're like, well, what happened? Well, it's stretched. So once I get through that initial stretch, usually after about a month, I'll check it and then I'll make sure I fill it up again. Then it's about every 6 months I give it a check, or before any big matches, because it's an easy thing to let go. It's a very gradual decline as it stretches. It's not something you're always going to stay on top of. And for me, I just want to make sure that if I go to a match that my ears are filled exactly how I want them. Now I've got this topped off nicely. My ear, because if I was a little bit of sand again, I can just push this in. And because you have this pocket here, we're going to push the flap in. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to put it under. And I want to make sure that it's straight. I don't want to put it in a weird angle or anything. And so that's just going to tuck in back here. And you can see that it is nice and flat there. So there you have it. That is a properly filled bag. I am going to take some air to it, make sure I blow off any residual sand. I will then wipe it down with a wet paper towel just to get, again, any sand that I may not have been able to blow off. And then it is good to go. One thing, just a little tip that I do, and a lot of people I know do, is I take a little bit of Armor All or similar substance. I'm going to put it on anything that can really absorb water. On the off chance I do end up shooting out in the rain, I do want to try to get as much water resistance on it. Not only that, it'll help increase the lubricity of this material. It just overall, periodically, I'll just put a little extra Armor All and wipe it in. And on the leather itself, if you want to use some kind of, leather wax or something on it over time, you can certainly do that as well. But that is what it looks like. And it weighs in, what weight is that at? I'm going to say it feels somewhere in the 7-pound range. What do we got? 8 pounds, 4 ounces. So that's right in the range that I wanted. And once it stretches and I put some more sand in, it's probably going to finish out right about 9 pounds, which is the tops of where I want it to be. My ears are going to stretch a little. I'll go back and fill those. The body will stretch. And so that just gives me a little bit of room to play with now. And that was just a combination of sands. Now, I did pull up this just to show you, but so this is again, Spexlite makes a heavy sand, like a really heavy sand that's heavier than even zircon. And sometimes, depending on the bags that I filled, maybe I made a mistake and I put too much of my recycle fill in there, the we'll call it plastic with the recycled fill here. And maybe I kind of came in a little bit light. Well, that super heavy sand allows me to put a little bit in and add a lot of weight. It's just really, really heavy. So because I've got different materials, I can really play with the weights and get it exactly where I want it. That's just how I like to do it. There are certainly plenty of people that will just go 100% zircon or heavy sand or reptile sand or playground sand or whatever they can find in the desert. And that works great for people too. So with that, I do hope that you're able to see, a couple different, techniques and tools and this and that for filling an F-class bag. It will certainly work on, the techniques and the filling will work on other bags, but this is primarily for a rear type bag. I use the same techniques when I'm filling the front rest bags on my Seb or on my Lionworks. And it's going to be the same technique, same sand, same packing techniques, all the way around on that. So with that, I do love showing you tips and tools and techniques that get you into the reloading room and having more fun. I do hope you get a chance to go out and shoot and have some fun there. And we will talk soon. Have a good one.